Okay, great. So I'll just welcome everybody and thank you for joining the Y.E.S from the North Suburban YMCA. I am excited to welcome Kathleen Iles from Rebecca's Dream and also Dr. Novak, author of Meta Stories. Tonight we'll be talking about the art of storytelling and its implications with social and emotional well-being, among other things. And thank you guys so much for your time and expertise, and I'll let you guys take it from here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to quickly introduce Dr. Novak. Like Amy had said, Dr. Novak is a licensed clinical psychologist in Illinois with over 35 years of experience working in hospital systems, outpatient private practice, and as consultant to industries. He has spent his adult life working with children, adolescents, adults, and families affected by mental health challenges. This is the first journey into book writing. Meta Stories began as a few metaphor stories 20 plus summers ago when he was overseeing a hospital-based summer program for children and teens. The manuscript for the book was cultivated by Dr. Novak over a course of his spare time when not helping others under his care and supervision. The book was illustrated by Jess Fang, so we wanted to give recognition to her. And stories, as we all know, they create opportunities for debate, questions, they inspire us, and they connect us to each other. So we wanted to have Dr. Novak on to talk a little bit about meta stories and to hear kind of why he created meta stories and kind of talk a little bit about the book, and then we'll go into the 3 chapters that we had shared with everybody. If you haven't had a chance to read them, please don't worry. I'm going to give a really brief description about what the chapter is about before we talk about it. Also, we would like this to be an informal discussion, so please feel free to either chat, and Amy will help us with the chat in the chat box, or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask any questions. We really would like this to be a conversation. So anything else, Dr. Novak, that you'd like to add? First, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to the Y for having me here. And thank you, Amy. No, you did a great job in the summary. The one thing that strikes me is perhaps we all have experienced this. And I remember being a kid and being a family get together and be listening to the stories of the senior family members, which was for me would be the grandparents. And I was always enthralled to hear a story, especially if it was a story about a time in the past, like World War II, and grandfather was in World War II. And what was always great about the stories is that there was always the theme, but the stories would change a little bit over the course of each time it was told. That was okay. But the nice thing about stories is the power of stories allow you to also interact and talk with each other, to ask questions, to say, oh gosh, oh wow, that story, especially if it's real life, that story is about one's life and what they experienced. Tell me more beyond the story, as well as the stories that I have in Meta Stories 1, which is really about symbols and underlying meanings. So even though the book has both people, it also has animals and it has inanimate objects, and often people say, well, that's for kids. And I say, no, you know what? No, that not actually. It's also for adults, because it allows us to, for a moment, to stop being an adult and put on that other inner part of our brain that is creative and thinking and reflecting and connecting and interpreting, and how this may relate to each of our lives. So that's really the premise behind the book. Even though it took 20 some years to write, but I'm not a writer by profession, and just thought that getting this out made sense. Little sidebar, if anyone is wanting to write a book, the biggest challenge is not necessarily writing the book. The biggest challenge is getting published. And I'm told that about 90-something% of people who try to get published don't, unless you're going to do it self-publish or and you can go that route. So if you're going to write a book, don't quit, don't give up. Took me 4 years to find a publisher. After many letters to many publishers. So just a little sidebar about the journey and about the fact that not giving up is so important. If you believe in something, don't give up.
Yes, that is so true. There in many of the stories, there's a deep sense of nature and movement and quiet resilience throughout the book. How does your relationship with nature influence your writing?
In a large way, I bike ride for exercise all my life. And when you bike ride, you're out there in nature, you're out there experiencing and allowing your senses to tune in to see, feel, and hear and smell and just experience. So I always think nature tells us stories. We just don't always necessarily pay attention or take nature for granted. When you really tune out what's going on in your head and tune into what's around you via walk or bike ride or just walking along a shoreline, nature is rich with stories. It's just that so for me, that was really the impetus that most of this is that way. The one story that we'll talk about, Andre the ant, that really came about because when I do take walks, I do notice the ants below and try not to avoid them. But when you allow yourself to think for a moment, what would it be like for an ant looking up at me, this big giant, and as they're trying to do what they need to do, which is survive and get to their colony, it really creates an opportunity to tell a story. And so that's just a little snippet of where my head's at.
So let's actually go right into chapter 11, since we were just talking about it. It's called Quest. The short description of the story is Andre the ant attempts to climb Garbage Hill without using his wings, a personal quest that tests his curiosity, courage, and self-discovery. So with this story in particular, what inspired the creation of Andre?
It pretty much was just noticing the activities in the life below our feet and wondering what that must be like when I'm walking across a sidewalk and that ant's trying to walk across as well, and my foot is I don't know how many thousand times bigger, and does that ant get across and survive? And how resilient that an ant must be, and so hence that was the shaping of it. And I'll show you a picture for those who haven't seen the book. This is the illustration by Jess Fang of the tomato soup can. So that was really the foundation of building on it, and the quest was really about, as Andre is navigating Garbage Hill and going through all those obstacles, including the soup can and other types of garbage from paper clips and so on, what must it be like to get up that hill? Because he didn't know what was up there yet, because he hadn't been there before. And why does one take a journey anyway? Is it faith? Is it just determination? Because you don't know you're going to make it. And how do you use your own wit and resilience and skill in any kind of quest we take in life? So that was really the story behind Quest.
So Andre in the story chooses not to use his wings. What does that decision symbolize to you?
It symbolizes, often when I talk to clients, I talk about innate versus innate ability versus where you need to use your growth in life, what we call growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So fixed mindset is really where we just use our innate abilities. We just rely on those. Well, our innate abilities only take us so far in life. People who are successful in life, whoever they are, you have to do the work. You have to believe that doing the work pays off, because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to make errors, you're going to stumble, but you learn along the way. So Quest is about Andre realizing, okay, yeah, I can just use my wings and flap up there, but I would have not learned anything. I would not have experienced the journeys in a powerful way. I'd be hovering above it, getting up to the top, say, hooray, I'm at the top, and then come back down. And what really was the experience? What part of the journey enriched him? And it's meant to be a metaphor, to well, an allegory to really describe for us in life. When you decide you want to do something, do you want to take the easy way, the simple one, the sure thing? Go for it. But what then do you feel afterwards? What's your takeaway from the experience? What riches do you have, except that, oh, I did this. Okay, you did that, but it's always about the moments in life. It's not about the outcome. It's about the moments. So that's what Quest is all about.
That's great. The story ends with Andre being knocked down after his success. What were you trying to say about accomplishments and setbacks?
That even when you have an accomplishment in that moment, something can happen unanticipated, such as a wind in this case, and that we can never fully predict what's going to happen next. Hence, it's so important to be in the moment, to say that that experience is wonderful. The next moment could be something else. And in Andre's case, he no longer was safe, so he relied on his wings to help him land appropriately, to fly and land appropriately, to protect himself. But he had already experienced his wonderful journey and his takeaway. So you and I, all of us are talking right now about what we're doing right now. We don't know what tomorrow brings, even though people plan it. They think that they can navigate every moment, and the reality is you can't. I'm gonna get in my car and travel into Chicago tomorrow. I've got my path laid out. I know where I'm going, but I don't know what's going to be ahead of me, what I'll have to be prepared for, and to have to pivot and make changes to adapt. So adapting is part of the takeaway here, that he adapted to the conditions. Once they changed, that they became somewhat risky for him, he instantly knew what he needed to do to protect himself.
And part of the journey.
And part of the journey. Absolutely. Absolutely. That, yes, his wings do serve a purpose.
Right. Right.
I feel
Amy?
like I feel like it was kind of like the ability for Andre to go through without using his wings helped build his confidence in a way. You know, like that self journey, and just like anything, it really helps you feel like you're able to do it, and it helps you feel more, I don't know, not just accomplished, but successful and happy with your own self, right?
No, I agree, Amy, because what the part of trying to also illustrate is you have to build trust in yourself. And how do you build trust in yourself? How do you develop that strength, what you call that confidence? Confidence doesn't just come from thin air. It comes from actions. It comes from experiences. And once you begin to trust, as Andre was navigating the hill, he was building confidence, but he was also trusting himself and his ability to navigate, growing that trust. So that whatever new obstacle, he already had learned several obstacles beneath his feet, below him, and so it helped prepare him for the next part of the journey. And that's really, I think, what life's all about. You build on those experiences, and that's how you build your trust in yourself and confidence.
Yeah.
So well
And
said.
it's the best way also to, I mean, experiences and confidence go so much hand in hand because it's the best way to be able to build those skills, to try things that are not part of your everyday life, to put yourself out there, to have a conversation with a stranger, all of that.
Absolutely. Well, and really what you just did is separating ability from skill.
Mm.
We all are born with certain abilities, but we're not born with skills.
Right.
You refine those, you craft them, you sharpen them through experiences and through sometimes trial and error, sometimes failure, sometimes small mistakes, but you grow, you learn. I mean, we rely heavily on skilled workers to manufacture our cars. We wouldn't want them to just go in there day one and say, I have ability. I'm, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what our cars would look like.
Very true. Does would anybody else like to weigh in?
I have oh, go ahead. Was that
No,
somebody?
go ahead.
I have two little kids, and I trying to help my son understand that, if you want to get good at your math facts, you have to practice them. Nobody just woke up one day knowing their times tables. It's that,
Yeah.
right? So it's teaching
Yep.
them that
Yep.
your skill is not given to you. Nobody was born knowing how to walk or anything like that. And it's it again comes down to that, like that easy path. So like you want it to be easy. I want to just know it right away without having to work hard at it.
Yeah, I remember when I was in middle school, I started taking up the trumpet and played through high school.
Oh, wow.
And trumpet's a hard instrument because it's obviously a mouthpiece. But I always remember being told, practice, practice, practice. Of course, when you're sixth or seventh grade, you think, oh no, I don't need to practice. Well, yeah, trumpet in particular doesn't sound very well if you don't practice. But the practice really then starts to refine your skills. I don't know when it comes to a musical instrument what it means to really master it. I think that's probably a lifetime, but certainly playing music, whether it be a trumpet or piano, is a great example where as you practice, you get better at it. As you rehearse, you get better at it. And it's amazing when people really take on a musical instrument as their lifelong trek.
Yeah.
And when they're good at it, what we experience in terms of the pleasure of the music and the sound. What we probably don't recognize is how many hours and hours and hours that person practices and rehearses. So
that is very true. So let's go on to chapter 7.
okay.
The deer who couldn't cross the road. The short description about the story: a young deer old enough to cross a road alone wrestles with fear that is not physical but internal. On his 9th attempt at dusk, he finally steps forward and succeeds. So, what inspired you with this story? And was the deer's fear based on a real event or a personal metaphor for you?
Not personally. It was more with patients I work with. Fear, anxiety tends to be fairly prominent. That comes up, emerges, and some level. I think we all experience fear in many ways. But what I was struck by with over the years is how fear, when it's not real danger. So I want to separate real danger where you're in a dangerous situation, and that fear is necessary for you to be able to protect yourself by fighting or by running or just getting through it. But really more fear where you're in your head and you what if it to death. You experience analysis paralysis where you're analyzing every little detail and you think if you can figure out every little predictable outcome, then you're going to do something. But ultimately, it only gets you stuck in contemplation, and you're never doing because you're just spinning in your head. Oh, okay. What about this? What about this? What about this? And then you never do it. and along the way, as you're thinking about all the what ifs, what's happening in your body? Your body's getting more freaked out. You're getting more worried. You're getting more anxious. And then you end up not doing it. So you say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it the next day. And that irrational fear where your brain triggers you to say there's danger when there really isn't real danger. It's irrational thought-based danger. It gets in the way for most of us in our lives. And probably most of us have our own stories of how irrational thoughts got in the way of doing something, where, gosh, we can only imagine what that'd be like to do it, but then we talk ourselves out of it because there's so many reasons to say, well, wait a minute here, I don't know this, I don't know that. Well, it's really about taming the fear and recognizing through facts what is there and trusting, getting back to Amy, what we said earlier about trusting yourself, that you can do it, that you have the ability to do it. So for the deer, and here's a pic of the deer. Gotta give Jess Spang her she worked hard on these. She worked hard on these.
did.
So the deer was certainly old enough to walk across. He had seen other deer his age walk across. Certainly, why walk across the row? Well, the vegetation looks pretty attractive, and deers love vegetation and love a hearty meal. So a good reason to go across the road. But certainly in this case, there were some real dangers, such as the cars. But there was also gaps of time there wasn't the real danger. It was the deer getting stuck with the four hoofs planted, saying, these are all the reasons for why I don't really want to do this, or I'm afraid to do this. And it really was meant to be an allegory for all of us to think of a time in our lives, a story, a moment where we let fear take over and rule us and paralyze us and prevent us from doing something that we really would like to do. And then we get ourselves stuck in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. If any of you ever experienced that, oh, I should have done it this way, only if I would have done it this way. Well, that's true, but that's now history. And how to overcome the fear and use facts and trust in yourself that you can do it.
Well, and also, I mean, with the looking back, it's healthy to look back as long as it becomes a learning tool
Exactly.
or a step forward versus a step backwards.
Absolutely. Yes, as long as you're not beating yourself up.
Yeah, right. We all do that.
Where that internal bully in your head says, aha, see? You're not as smart as you think you are. See,
I told you.
Yeah, you really can't do this. And look at you, you just showed you can't do it. We all have that internal bully that when it's magnifying like a bullhorn, it's so loud in our head that keeps us from doing what we do. But you're absolutely right. You can also learn from certain experiences. And certainly when we talk about challenges in life, it's up to all of us to decide what is the length of the challenge. I'm not going to go skydiving. I don't anticipate I'm ever going to go skydiving in my life. And the reason is that I'm never convinced it is safe enough to do that. Some people who are daredevils, who like adventure and like risk, will do it. And I'm not critical of that, but that's not something that I'm going to do. And I'm okay saying I'm afraid of it.
So just on a side note with this, you placed this story at dusk with shifting light and dangers of cars. So what's the symbolism of that? What does it bring to the story for you?
The other layer, that some things are not as easy as we'd like them, and sometimes we think we can make the conditions ideal. Say, if we make it ideal, then it's going to be we're just going to be able to do it, and conditions aren't always ideal. And in this case, dusk means shifting from daylight to night. That means the car's lights are on, and that means the conditions were more challenging for the deer. Now, he didn't have to walk across at that time. He had a choice. had a choice. He could have waited till morning, but this was an opportunity for him. And certainly there were greater risks. But then again, if he trusts himself and he has confidence, there's still that payoff across the way. And certainly the deer, representing all of us, sees the risks, sees the challenges, and like the cars and the headlights. And so I suspect a deer can hopefully learn the distance between those headlights and getting across. He does have 4 hoofs, so certainly a lot faster than you and I getting across. But again, meant to be for all of us to think about situations that we'd like to do, and recognizing that if we're waiting for ideal conditions, we're going to wait a long time.
I know that we often use the term finding your inner courage or something along those lines, where, this is really about not overthinking it, but being able to take that step forward.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Because in this case, he had been there before. He had seen the road, seen what's on the other side. He just didn't do it the other time. So it was familiar to him. It wasn't just an unusual circumstance. And sometimes in life, you have to assess and just do.
Mm-hmm. Amy, do you have anything to add, or anybody else?
I was just going to say, it's like there's no better time than now type of thing. And you just have to seize the moment. And I kind of think back to like baseball, which is weird, but if you're up to the bat and it's like, you see one strike go by, and then it's, that strike is your moment. That's your moment to just go for it. You only get so many chances, and then you're out. And then you're back on the bench thinking, woulda, coulda, shoulda type of thing.
Yes. Baseball is a good one too, because if you get 3 hits out of 10, you're doing great, which in real life is like, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, you're failing.
If the deer had that many chances, I don't think or that many successes, you might be in trouble.
Yes. Baseball is definitely a great metaphor for life in so many ways. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's just encouraging, especially with like the idea of something taking place at dusk, and it's only going to get darker. You're only going to lose your chance. It's only going to get harder. So just do it now.
Absolutely. And in this case for the deer, certainly the deer still has sight, but has to judge a car by the lights, but still has his ears, still has his hoofs. So he still has that ability to get across.
Yeah.
That's great.
And the other reason I put it at dusk, just as a sidebar, is that I always remember whenever I'm driving that it seems like the deer are crossing the road at dusk.
That's true.
They are.
So something just sat in my brain saying, well, gosh, they always seem to go across at dusk. Why don't they go during the day?
Yeah, that's when they wander when it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go into chapter 16. The title is Leaving. An aging boulder is displaced by a natural upheaval, losing pieces of itself as it's carried from its longtime home, ultimately settling in a new and unfamiliar place. So with this story, what was the inspiration using the builder as the central character of the story about change and loss?
Well, part of it was about the fact that I remember growing up as a kid thinking, gosh, I hope things stay the same. That, this is comfortable. Don't want things to change. If we can only lock in and just say life is going to be like that for the rest of your life. Well, as you get older, you realize, well, God, I would have missed a lot if I would have just stayed the same at age 10. But I think that the reason I did use a boulder, which we all can imagine a boulder that is a huge boulder. That the thought is, well, gosh, that's permanent. That's not going anywhere. But it's a great symbol of the fact that really nothing is permanent, including the fact of a boulder. That things can happen. Conditions can change. Conditions, including on our Earth, that can be pretty dramatic. That can alter the life of a boulder in terms of where it's positioned and change in an instant. And so that was really the thought behind that, for us to think about the fact that we sometimes want things to stay the same, and that we want predictability, and we want to believe that this is all our life is always going to be this way. And the reality is it isn't necessarily the case. But it allows us to think about moments in our lives, whether it's right now or later today or tomorrow, moments where we say, wow, that's what life's all about. It's moments. It's not about saying, well, we moved a few years ago from Buffalo Grove. So we moved after 30 years in one house. I suspect 30 years ago, I thought, oh, okay, we're probably going to stay in that house until we can't walk or something. But the reality is, no, we decided, no, it was time to move and to change locations. And so I think that the whole notion of leaving is, yes, you're leaving behind experiences. Sometimes it can be dramatic and tragic, such as what happened with this boulder and the other vegetation. Leave a trail of, in some ways, destruction, not implying that our lives are going to go that way. But we need to appreciate what we have today, and enjoy those moments, and not just assume everything's going to be the same tomorrow.
Yeah, but sometimes we do leave a path of mishaps or destruction that changes your path forward, maybe not quite as monumental as like
Yep.
moving homes, but maybe it's something more simple as a job, or,
Yep.
a vision for your family, or what, things that you'd like to focus on because you feel like you've gotten off the path of what you believe.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that there's times where we have a sense of control over the journey, and
Mhm.
we can kind of direct it. And there are other times where sometimes we're helpless to the journey in that moment. And how do we get through it? If you've ever felt a helpless moment in life where you realize, oh my gosh, what's happening here? How do I get through this? And then look back and try to understand the experience. What was it that just happened? And how do you recover? How do you regain a sense of control? And ultimately decide, are you going to adapt to the new condition? Because the old condition's gone. Are you going to adapt? Or are you going to say, no, I can't deal with this? It's a choice that many people in our world today are making every day.
Right. And are you able to let go of some of that
Yes, absolutely.
to be
Absolutely.
able to heal?
Yep.
Because that holding on to that, some of it holding on can be difficult.
Yep. And ultimately, for the story, the allegory about the boulder, the boulder has to at some point decide to accept the new condition,
Mhm.
to recognize, oh wow, this is my world now. And how do I move on with what's around me?
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything to add? Any questions? Amy, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I was thinking about how control is a thing that I have a hard time managing. I like to have control over a lot of things in my life, and
Uh-huh.
sometimes you just get so like, at least for me, like tunnel vision, that you really miss out on all the things that all the good stuff, because you're thinking about all of the all of the little things that you can control. I guess you get kind of stuck in the small micro instead
Yep.
of macro. You know, you want to take a step back and look at the big picture, which is it's difficult. I'm sure if it's difficult for me, it's difficult for a lot of people, but I don't know I don't know what to how to help myself get back into that I guess mindset of trying to look at it holistically and not get so bogged down by trying to be so controlling.
Well,
Being very real.
yeah, it's a great point, because I think that I believe most of us want to have some level of control over our lives, because if we don't have a feeling of control, then we feel a bit powerless.
Oh, I think he froze.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to send a little message to him, maybe.
Okay. He's having his Wi-Fi worked on.
I know.
Did you hear? I've got his cell number. I can
Okay.
always text him real quick.
You know, I wish there was a refresh button, but I don't think you can with Zoom.
Oh, he just dropped out, so he'll
I
sign
bet it'll
back
come
in.
back in. Yeah.
So just to continue a little
Yeah.
bit, and I'm sure he'll go in a little bit further into that, but when we always do an exercise with students and people in the community where you write down those things that you truly can control.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're able, I mean, first you recognize everything that you're worried about, and then you put
Yeah.
them into like
Boy.
that circle, right? That inner
Yes.
circle of, I can control this. And if you really look at the circle, it ends up being so small because the worries, so many of them fall on the outside of what you really can control. They're usually not controllable. So if you can release that to some extent, and we'll hand it over to Dr. Novak to finish that.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you,
this
Kathleen.
this is a great example of things you can't predict are going to happen
Yeah.
in the moment.
Right.
I think we had a power surge because it's my I can see my AC is not working right now, so we'll see what's
Oh,
going on after we're
no.
done. But good example how you think we could predict, all right, this hour is going to be this way, and boom.
Yeah.
Mother Nature, being 90 degrees out, has other things in store for us.
Yes.
But what you're getting at in terms of control isn't necessarily a negative. In fact, I think we all want a sense of control of our lives. It's really whether seeking control gets in the way of enjoying and experiencing the moment and what you want to experience in a way of success in the journey. Because you can get bogged down in, as you were kind of alluding to, well, what are all the variables and factors?
Mhm.
And I'm never sure in any situation whether we can ever fully account for all those. And better to, as you said something so important, Amy, you said sometimes you just need to step back, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes you need to step back. I use the story with clients. Sometimes I say, if you have a beautiful picture on your wall and you put your nose to the picture, what do you see? And they laugh at me. They say, well, it's blurred. I can't see anything. I said, you're right. Sometimes you're too much on top of it. You need to step back 3 feet, 5 feet, then appreciate what the gestalt is, what the whole thing is. And then from there say, okay, here's what I know. Give myself the credit. I have enough information. Let me just go and do whatever that is I want to do, or that interaction. Otherwise, I'm just getting bogged down on all the variables. I'm trying to control the situation, and what ultimately is the experience going to be like for me.
That's so true. That's it's, but I feel like sometimes things like that, it's easier said than done for me. You know what I mean? And it's just
Yep.
like anything else. It's like building that skill of
Mhm.
working on you know, the problems that you might have, like being a control freak.
Well, you just said something that's so important, and it's related to habits. We all have habits. So when you mentioned about catching yourself and not falling into the habit, it's a habit. Some habits are wonderful. Some habits kind of get in the way of enjoying life. And the only way you form a new habit is micro moments, saying, all right, today I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to do it again that way. And slowly develop these new ways of doing things. And over time, allow that to be the new habit. Thing about control, though, is that control is so conditioned on circumstances and events and people. So I want to be careful not to make this wide sweeping generalization, because I suspect if you really work hard on it, you're going to get good in certain things, and there are certain things where you're vulnerable. Most of the time, it's people that make us vulnerable.
I have a question about control and attitude. I had a friend who was a professional speaker, and she would always say that the only thing she could control in her life was her attitude. And in essence, if you stretch the thought of attitude to include built up skills or other things that you've learned that would help you move forward, that would encompass attitude, skills, whatever. And basic, I guess, basic self-confidence to just do it, as Nike would say.
Just do it. Yeah. They made a lot of money with that statement, didn't they? You're absolutely right, Diane. It's interesting. We talk about mindset, and that mindset we include what is your attitude about yourself and your attitude about life. And you're right, attitude is something that we own, that we can be influenced by others. When people say, oh, you made me feel a certain way, or you made me react. No, you always have a choice. You always have a choice. And so your attitude affects everything that we do in life. Think about when you get up in the morning and you have an attitude like, oh, I'm not really happy about waking up right now, and not really happy about how the day is. That attitude can shape you for throughout the day, and affect the choices you make, affect the energy, the motivation, interaction with people. I suspect all of us know at least one person in our life who's Debbie Downer attitude. You feel like, oh gosh, if I hear one more downer, I think I'm going to shoot myself, so to speak. Meaning that one's attitude, especially when it's more extreme, both in terms of being bubbly and effervescent, to somebody who's more a real downer and who complains a lot, can really affect us. So you're right. When it comes to human interaction and social interaction, the attitude we bring to the table really does shape what the experience is going to be like. Thank you for that. That's a great perspective.
You're welcome. I have another question and thought as you were going through it, and you were talking about moments, moments of happiness, joy, whatever. They're moments. I used to think of happiness as like, well, you feel happy all the time. Well, nobody feels happy all the time. And I guess learning to cherish those moments are, I guess I'd say that's about what it is. That's all there is. So,
no, you're absolutely right. It is cherishing those moments where you feel fulfilled. Where whatever it may be, there's a sense of, wow, this really feels good. This is what happiness is all about. And that's what makes it special. I suppose if we're happy all the time, it would no longer be special. It would be our normal. And that's really why I always push to don't lose sight of moments. Because if you're thinking that you want it to happen again and again and again, that's future state. We don't know what that's all about. But if you're feeling really wonderful today, you had a day that you reflect on and say, wow, this was a joyful day. This was fulfilling. That's special, because you can close your eyes tomorrow and think about it, and it brings you back to it. That's what joy and fulfillment and happiness does. It brings us back. Those memories get locked in so powerfully, just as times of sadness get locked in powerfully. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, hopefully you can have a nexus of moments of happiness. those pearls that you can link
Right. Oh, I think he had another surge.
I think so too. Oh,
Well, while we're waiting,
yes.
I have a thought for you. All right, this is I don't know, I don't know what to call it, a skill, a cheat, or whatever. But someone said that when you're starting your day in the morning, whether you're by yourself with another person, doesn't matter, that when you get up, you make your bed. And by making your bed, you have first started your day with an accomplishment. You've done something, you've accomplished something, and it makes you feel, well, it just makes you feel better because you did something and it looks better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just a little aside.
Some people have a mantra that they say to themselves after they've gotten up, they've made their bed, and they say, I'm going to have a good day, or they say, I am strong, or something that they feel helps them kind of get through the day.
Do you think that, so to speak, self-talk is, I don't know, an important skill, or I don't know what else to call it.
I do. It's very powerful. I mean, it's proven to be very powerful. Dr. Novak, we're talking about self-talk.
Okay.
And the power of self-talk. I'm going to turn it over to the doctor and he'll share his thoughts with it. She said, is it proven to be powerful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the bottom line is, who do we talk to all day? The most.
All right.
Ourselves.
Ourselves. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the interesting thing about self-talk is you want to just be aware that you not get yourself stuck in a monologue where you just feel like it's a circular conversation where there's no exit. And especially if it's something powerful. If it is, you got to catch yourself, say, I need to exit from this because it is not healthy and helpful to me. And maybe if you're really struggling with something, that's where a dialogue with a friend or somebody that you trust is very powerful. Then the other piece is be careful of the internal bully. The internal bully is the self-talk where the intent is to be critical and to be judgmental of yourself, to find moments where you're feeling weak and vulnerable, to attack you, to knock you down. We all have the internal bully. Some of us, it's louder than others, depending on our family of origin, depending on our self-confidence, depending on our experiences and our interactions with others in life, where that feeling of guilt and self-judgment has been reinforced. So yes, I think having that internal dialogue is great. Making sure it's not a monologue where you feel trapped, or where you find yourself for a few minutes screaming and yelling at yourself and being critical, which is never deserving. And when you can catch yourself, say, wait, I need to stop this. I need to do some deep breathing, calm my body down, say, here I go again. All I'm doing is being critical and judgmental and attacking myself. What's the purpose of that? Ultimately, the purpose of it is to put you down and make you feel terrible about yourself.
Nothing for it.
Very true.
Sorry for the glitch tonight. We're having power problems over here in Northbrook, and it's it's not an old development, so I have an answer.
No, don't worry. I
I
just
have a
was,
feeling it may have been might be a transformer or something. So
it must be,
yeah, it's outside of my home, so
right.
I'll go find
No.
out when we get off of what's going
No,
on.
Don't worry. The
Happens to
texts were
everybody.
just to give you a heads up. They were not a criticism because sometimes you don't know if you're frozen. So,
Yeah, and you keep talking and then.
Yeah, and then rarely that happens, but there's something going on outside our complex. I think that's what
Yeah.
the case is.
right.
happens.
No.
I just have a question. I know we're getting toward the end, but if you know someone, a young person who is stuck, you see that they're stuck, they just don't seem to be able to make a next step. Do you have any thoughts as to how you could help those people or encourage them? What, I don't know, what thoughts might you have?
Well, it depends on what the relationship is. So if it's somebody that is young and you have a relationship where what you say has value, or they know you, or there's some level of trust, then your feedback to them can be pretty powerful, to say to them in an honest way, hey, I'm seeing you're struggling, I'm seeing you're suffering, I'm seeing you're in pain, or I'm seeing that you're going down this path where I'm worried for you, can have really powerful meaning. So if it's a relationship, it can be quite significant. If it's somebody you don't really know, that's hard.
No, someone that I know very well.
Yeah, when you know them very well, that means there is already a relationship, an established connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a believer that you share your honest thoughts with empathy. Meaning it's not just, hey, let me tell you what I think, but more being tuned into that you want to show understanding and compassion, but also be real and honest.
And listen without judgment.
And
That's
listen without
always
judgment. Yes,
piece.
and listen without judgment. Yep. What we call reflective listening. Yep. Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Good questions tonight.
I know, very good.
Yeah, thank
you for
you.
sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like it's a little after 8, and I want to make sure I don't have another glitch.
And I just have the trees in the background of the picture in your background of Dr. Novak's background.
Oh,
Any significance to that, or?
Yes, actually, yes. When COVID hit and it went from seeing clients in the office to going to telehealth, and meaning being in the home office, I wanted to create a background that was kind of Zen-like, and so those are Japanese cherry blossoms, and I thank my son for picking out the canvases that I purchased. So he loves Japanese stuff, and he said, "Dad, you need to have a Japanese background with the cherry blossoms and the little lanterns, so that when people are looking at you, they can look beyond you and say, okay, that looks good."
And there's a road to go down.
And there's a road, there's a path.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. I've seen where I have people that are professionals, and I'll consult with them, and I'll see behind them, and I'm saying, oh gosh, they didn't think about what they put behind them. Or they'll put up that screen where you can have, like, you're in San Francisco, then all of a sudden they disappear into it as we're talking. I'm thinking, I'm never going to use those back screens because it looks like you're hiding. So yes, a great example of a metaphor, the journey, the path. Yep.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, good observation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amy, are you going to share the link with everybody for the book?
Yeah, I'll share the link for this recording, as well as the link where you can purchase Dr. Novak's book.
Thank you.
Visit Rebecca's Dreams website. This has been wonderful. I thank you both so much, and to
Thank you.
everyone that attended, and Diane, thank you so much for participating. You had some very valuable things to say. I took notes.
Okay. Oh, great. This is fun. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Have a good night.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.